I'm not interested in upholding the institution. I'm interested in the health of the people. And if something the institution is doing is causing people to be in bad health, I don't care about heaven and hell. You can go to hell with heaven and hell if what you're doing is causing people to be depressed and anxious. That's what I want you to be aware of when it comes to like people reframing greatest commandment, people calling stuff harmful without having any type of tangible evidence of harm. And if you're like, well, what is tangible evidence of harm? We talk about it. We talk about the emotional and psychological harm that religious indoctrination does to people. This is clinically studied. See, what happens is church folk don't consider anything outside of church, particularly fundamentalists. So they're not paying attention to what the emotional health community is talking about when it comes to religious trauma. They're not paying attention to the amount of people who have had to go get therapy as a result of their religious indoctrination and the mental torment it has caused them. They're not paying attention to the disrupted nervous systems that people have because of the messages that they were taught in church. And that's what I mean when I say I'm not interested in upholding the institution. I'm interested in the health of the people. And if something the institution is doing is causing people to be in bad health, I don't care about heaven and hell. You can go to hell with heaven and hell if what you're doing is causing people to be depressed and anxious, causing people to constantly doubt themselves, not trust themselves. The harm is in how we relate to ourselves. But the thing is, the way that we talk about harm here, it actually puts the ownership on you to determine what is good for you. It's the empowerment of the people that we do here that you don't get in fundamentalism. In fundamentalism, you're told what to think. You're told how to feel about stuff. But here we're saying, how does that resonate with you? What impact does that have on you? You tell us. We're not going to tell you. You tell us. Does that make you feel better about yourself? Does that make you feel worse about yourself? Do you feel more connected to yourself when you hear that, when you practice that? If we suggest a practice and you try it and you don't feel connected to yourself, don't do it. Don't do it. Because we're not here for the upbuilding of the institution. We're here for the upbuilding of the people. So when we talk about life abundantly, that's what we're talking about. That you could be in good health mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. We're talking about autonomy. We're talking about agency. That's why the fundamentalist saints on Facebook are so pissed off at my video where I said, your life is your own. That is a controversial statement in fundamentalism. Your life is your own. They in the comments like, what is this doctrine of devils? Your life is your own is doctrine of devils?
Fundamental. I said the other day that fundamentalism is, I don't think it's that they're not paying attention. It's that they take the disrupted nervous system and reframe it. They call it correction and conviction. So if you are upset and if your nervous system is upset, then that's you being convicted. Like it's not being ignored. It's just being reframed to emotionally manipulate the people.
And what they're ignoring is what the mental health professionals are saying, right? Because the church is telling you it's correction and conviction. Then you go to somebody who actually specializes in mental and emotional health, and they'll tell you, no. Right? So you can't, I try to emphasize emotionally healthy spirituality. I take emotional health seriously. I study it. I pay attention to it, all of that good stuff, right? But I am not a mental health expert. No pastor is a mental health expert unless they are trained in that work. So why are we paying more attention to what a pastor says about our mental health than we pay attention to what a mental health expert says about our mental health? That's the question we got to ask. And if your pastor is a Christian psychologist, the whole purpose of that is to reinforce the doctrine. That's the whole purpose, to reinforce the doctrine. So you just wind up right back where you started.
It kind of reminds me of like people who train their dogs not to leave the yard, but they don't put the visible fence. They put that invisible shock thing so that like every time the dog tries to escape, they just get shocked and turn around and come back. That's what it makes me think of. It's like they don't put a visible barrier. They put an emotional and spiritual barrier. And then you take that and create your own physical barrier because they gave you the tools to build the fence. My Lord.
Bing bong.
My Lord. They let you do that yourself.
Again, fundamentalist indoctrination is very subtle. That's why we provide information from social workers and psychologists and therapists, because I don't believe you can be spiritually healthy and be emotionally unhealthy, because the two are so intertwined. You want to know how I know? Because we connect to our theology emotionally before we do intellectually. Yes, we connect to it emotionally. So if you're connecting to your faith emotionally, how can you be spiritually healthy and be emotionally unhealthy? They're intertwined. So yeah, like when we talk about harm, that's what we're talking about. It's not just like whatever the hell fundamentalists because they don't have anything tangible. They can't have a conversation about tangible harm. Anytime you press them on it, they can't do it.
Tangibility requires connection. Tangibility requires you to be present in your body. For something to be tangible, you got to be connected. So if I'm not connected to my emotions, if I'm not connected to the emotions of others, if I'm not in tune to that, everything is mystical. Everything is, hypothetical and analogies, and because I'm not connected either. So how am I going to give you a tangible example when I'm not looking for tangible examples? I don't know.
Exactly. That's why I asked the question, because I know these niggas don't know. That's why you got to take ownership of it for yourself, because what we're so accustomed to doing is doing what somebody else told us was good for us. Somebody else told you that it was good for you to deny your sexuality. So then you try to live that out because somebody else told you that. And then you're walking around with a disrupted nervous system, saturated in self-loathing, because you are trying to internalize what somebody else told you about yourself instead of being in touch with yourself to determine what is good for you.
And I just want to add, like, we all got a hell of a lot of past experiences, but one thing I always try to even tell myself is that once you recognize where the emotion is coming from, try your best not to get stuck. Because sometimes stuff will come up in these type of environments where we're learning how to be autonomous and think on our own, and then stuff will come up and it's uncomfortable, and we'll say, see, it's because of my indoctrination, it's because my parents didn't do A, B, and C. And all of that is true, but we can't get stuck in the mud right there. We can't get stuck in the mud on the blame and who's at fault, because what we're trying to do is instill resilience and a willingness to try to unpack as much of that and reimagine as much of that as possible. And we can't, there's only so much forward progress you can make if you keep your feet stuck in who did you dirty and who made you mad. Because most of the times those institutions and those pastors and those church members, they aren't going to come back and be accountable for that. So we have to do our best that when we recognize the root of those feelings, that we acknowledge it, we hold space for it, but we try not to get, we just can't get stuck right there.
Yeah.
Let's not give them the rest of our good years by wallowing in what they did to us. Absolutely not. We fixing that shit around here.
That's the work. If you're still here, hit the subscribe button and leave us a comment. Let us know what you think about the video. And if you want to see the entire recording, it's exclusively available in our Patreon. The link is in the show notes. You can either subscribe or you can just purchase this recording a la carte. We'll see you next time as we continue to deconstruct harmful theology and build beloved community. Peace out.